Alrighty, so all the games from match week number 2 is in the books as we only had one game that happened on Sunday and it was a relatively early game. But that being said, as always the case, in part 1 we're going to look at the first 8 games and that one game between New England versus Toronto. I'll talk about it in terms of part 2 of my review of the last 6 games from match week number 2. And I got to say, in terms of this match week, it felt like it was a complete opposite of what we saw in match week 1 where as match week 1, we saw the home team pretty much dominate the opening weekend's action. This time it's the road team that's been getting the victory, and that we only saw 3 teams that was able to win at home in this match week, and literally 2 of them came on this board. And not to mention, we saw a game that gone completely at a hand, and that we also saw some surprising results too, some upsets. But most importantly, we saw a snow game, and that snow game also is one that is on this board as well. But that being said, let us begin. Talk about the first game, which is Minnesota versus the Columbus Crew. And I gotta say, I did not expect the Loons to get anything out of this game, and especially with the way that pretty much the entire front four minus Pookie was not available in this game, and that they were so dire in terms of their attacking talent that they had to call up some of the Minnesota United two-player coming into this game, and not to mention that this team was staring on a defeat as we head deep into stoppage time. I did not expect the fact that they were going to pull it off, but yet Gets shines again for this Loons team. Now, early on, in the 4th minute, Pookie would puts it wide from close range before Schulte would deny Pookie on the front post in the 8th minute. Pookie was definitely active in the first couple of minutes, and a lot of that has to do with the press. So we talked about before where it feels like this season Minnesota is going with a complete new style where Cameron Nolas loved to see his team press, and it seems like it was very effective. At least in the first couple of minutes, they were proving havoc to this Crew team. Now, eventually Columbus did figure out the press that the Loons had, and also you can't basically decide to go full on press for the full 90 minutes, but at least early on the press was definitely working for Minnesota. They were forcing a lot of problem for the Crew early on. Though the first shot for the Crew did came in the 11th minute as Rossi would put it wide in the 11th minute, and then Cucho would hit one right to Dane Sinclair after just a giveaway from in the midfield from Minnesota. So yeah, that is definitely not good. And turnover is kind of the last thing the Loons need in this game because we know this Crew team. They are already a dangerous team on the attack. So the last thing you need is to give them a turnover, give them a short field, and you would basically be punished because of it. Now the good news for Minnesota in this game is that they didn't really turn the ball over a lot. That was really one of the few times they turned the ball over cheaply in the midfield. But in the 32nd minute, Dane Sinclair had to rob Cucho from point blank header, and I feel like this game was a very Dane Sinclair kind of game because there's times where he simply bailed out because of his incredible shot stopping movement, but then there's also times where he showed his poor ball distribution that is pretty much what kind of holds him back to be one of the best goalkeeper in the league, and not to mention he also let in a bit of a soft goal as I'll talk about in just a bit, but in the 34th minute, Cucho would miss one from close range as Columbus was pressing for the opener. Dane Sinclair would deny Arfston from close range, and then some Bin was in on goal here. In fact, he beat the last Crew defender, and that Minnesota had a 2-on-1 advantage there. In classic Minnesota fashion, they don't cash in because yeah, that moment just kind of sums up Minnesota problem in terms of the attack that I've seen in the past couple of seasons where you have the most glorious opportunity to score a goal, and somehow the Loons can find a way to screw it up. I mean, to be credit, the last Crew defender did a good job in terms of cutting that one out, but that has to be ends up into the back of that. Like you don't get a 2v1 opportunity a lot in a game, and that yeah, I just feel like in a game where the Crew was starting to find their feet and getting most of the chances, Minnesota's got to capitalize on that opportunity. But in the 43rd minute, Dane Sinclair would deny Rossi in the front post, and we had to have time with the score scoreless between both of these teams. In the second half, there was a shout for a penalty for Columbus not giving early in the second half before Dane Sinclair would deny Cujo, and then Arfston actually puts it into the back of there on the rebound. Problem is, he was in an offside position, so the goal was chopped off. Once again, the Crew were on the front foot. They were looking for the opening goal, and it was a flat start for Minnesota in the second half. And to no one's surprise, Columbus eventually the opening goal. It's Cucho Hernandez. He scored from Yaboa to make it 1-0 in favor of Columbus. So yeah, Cucho pretty much picked up where he left off last season, and pretty much is kind of the main catalyst in terms of the goal scoring so far for the crew. As yeah, that gives the crew a 1-0 lead. And this is where I feel like Dane Sinclair probably should have done better because again, this one was hit near post. I mean, it was hit with a bit of power from the volley from Cucho, but in a near post, I mean, with the way that Dane Sinclair kind of react late to that one, I feel like he should have done better, and that's and then been the problem I sometimes have with Dane Sinclair. I mean, as much as he is definitely well loved in the Loons fan base, there's just times where there's these kind of moments where there's some easy shots that you would expect him to save it, considering he saved some of the tougher ones earlier, and yet he left in a soft one like that. So a little bit annoying that of course is the case, but again, I wasn't surprised because Columbus was pushing for that opener and they got their reward. So in the 86th minute, or the 68th minute, that is, Alois Shari would look to answer, but he hits one right to Schulte before Cucho looked for his second, but he puts it wide from long range. Columbus were looking to put this one away and push for the second goal. But then Schulte would deny Mincevic on the volley. So Loic Mincevic, of course, calling up from Minnesota United too, one of the players that, of course, called up to the senior team because they were so short-handed heading into this game on the attack. And, well, that would have been a great moment for him to score his first career MLS goal on his debut. And then Arriaga would hit it wide from close range as Minnesota was definitely pushing late for the equalizer, and the crew they were trying to clearly hold on to another 1-0 win. Didn't happen though, because right as the final whistle was about to blow, Oliver Shardy, who of course assisted the winning goal last week against Austin, he would score here from Rosales to tie the game up at one apiece, and that of course is the first career MLS goal for Tani Oliver Shardy. And yeah, in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in a game where it feels like Minnesota kind of stole a point in this one against the defending champion. And the shots of this one, 12 shots committed, 9 that Minnesota had, 6 shots on goal for the 4 that the Loons had, 4 shots off target for the 3 that the crew has, 1 shot that was blocked for the 3 that Columbus had, and possession-wise, 53% possession, compared to the 47% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And if you would have told me that this team would be able to take a point out of the defending champion, despite how short-handed they were on the attack, I would absolutely take it, and I would especially take it with the way that anytime when you score a late stoppage time goal, especially against a more superior team, I don't care if it's at home or on the road. Yeah, that definitely feels like a win. And that goal that Oliver Shari scored, that was probably one of the loudest I've heard Allianz feel been celebrated in a very long time, and rightfully so. I mean, you can hear that crowd definitely brought a lot of energy in the home opener. It was a sold out crowd at Allianz Field on a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and once that goal went in, it erupted to a point where, again, yeah, this really felt like, even though it was only a point for this team with how shorthanded that they are in the start of the season, I will happily gladly take a point out of this game against the Columbus Crew, and this game is starting to or these first 2 games for Minnesota is starting to kind of feel like last season, where they actually got off to a decent start despite the fact that they're shorthanded. Now, my worry is that once we get the most of our starter back, hopefully we won't suffer what we saw last season, where yeah, things kind of stall out a bit for this team. But for the Columbus Crew, I know they got a point out of this game, but it's got to be a very disappointing point, and especially again, this has been a problem for Columbus. This was still a problem for Will Finanzi team, that it feels like they still have the Caleb Porter syndrome of giving up late goals and having problem of closing out games, and especially with the way how they close out games like that. Yeah, I think Crew fans have seen this story before, and I don't think anyone is surprised the fact that they blew it late, and that at least the good news is they didn't do it during their MLS Cup champion run, but it's got to be a little frustrated the fact that it's still happening even in the year 2024, and that they hope that it won't happen as much as what we've seen in the Caleb Porter era, and even during last season in their MLS Cup winning season. But that being said, moving on, in the next match is a massacre that we saw in the Florida Derby between Inter Miami and Orlando City. And I gotta say, Inter Miami definitely sent a message to the rest of the league after this game, and I guarantee that they have definitely sent a message to all those doubters that basically said after the first two games that they played that they're not really as good as they are. And specifically, I have a feeling Luis Suarez probably have heard all the doubters about how he's completely washed up and that he basically doesn't have the leg to really be the proven goal scorer for this Inter Miami team, and he took it personally early in this game because just 4 minutes into this game, he would score his first career goal from Gresso to make it 1-0 in favor of Inter Miami, and what a way to do so too. I mean, he hits that one on a volley. I mean, there's not a lot of player in the world besides Luis Suarez can hit that. That looked like vintage Luis Suarez there, and Inter Miami take a 1-0 lead. Though McGuire did look to respond there in the 7th minute, but he missed high from close range. That was as close as Orlando City would get in terms of making this game competitive because in the 11th minute, guess who? It's Suarez. He scored from Gresso again to make it 2-0 in favor of Inter Miami, and then just 13 minutes later, Robert Taylor would score from Suarez to make it 3-0 in favor of Inter Miami. Got to give a lot of credit to Luis Suarez to not be selfish to take that shot. I mean, he could have easily taken that shot, even though he's on a hat trick, but you saw that the better option was to roll it to Robert Taylor, and yeah, that was a tap in here. It was 3-0 after just 24 minutes, and it feels like Miami has turned into prime Barcelona in this game. I mean, the way that they attack every time that they go through the attack and able to penetrate this Orlando City team, yeah, it just looked like Orlando has nothing thing they can do to handle it. And I'm not gonna blame Orlando defense on too much of that. I don't think any team could have done anything because of how well that Miami played in this one. Well, maybe I'll partially blame Orlando defense that probably had the worst game that they have ever had in quite some time. But we do head to halftime with Miami leading 3-0 in the second half. Messi would put it just wide from long range before the post would deny Gresso and Miami the fourth goal. Again, it feels like it was more of the same in the second half. It was Miami all over Orlando in this one, and you just had a feeling it was a matter of the fourth will happen, and it did. In the 57th minute, it's Messi that scores the fourth goal for Inter Miami. Originally, Janssen was able to clear this shot off the line there, but unfortunately, it kind of bounced right into Messi. He actually cleared it on to the post, but it bounced right to Lionel Messi, and he basically had an empty net tap in, and that's when you know that everything is going right for Miami when that happened, and everything is clearly going wrong for Orlando City in this one. And then in the 62nd minute, why not add number five as Messi would score again from Suarez to make it 5-0 in favor of Inter Miami. So Messi, of course, with the two goals, Suarez with the two goals and two assists. Do not be surprised that he might be winning the player of the week, especially with the way that nobody scored a hat trick this week. Yeah. So that made it 5-0. And I mean, Ro, it looked like we're about to have a red wedding Florida version incoming. So, we saw the red wedding, the infamous game, at least if you're an NYCFC fan, a couple of years ago where the Red Bulls won 7-0 against NYCFC on the row, and it feels like this feels very similar. It looks like we might have another red wedding game, especially with the way that this could have been 6 or 7. Now, the good news for Orlando City, at least Inter Miami kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, and also this is when I kind of stopped taking notes because this game was also happening, and I'll just kind of spoil it for everyone, although I don't think it's really a big spoiler. This is, of course, the snow game, and I was really interested in watching the snow game rather than this game that was just pretty much completely out of hand. So the only notes I wrote besides that is Calendar denying Enrique from close range because Trey Calendar wants to get his clean sheet, and he does. As in the end, Miami was able to win 5-0 in this one. Shots in this one, 11 shots for the 9 that Orlando City has, 3 shots on goal for the 6 that Miami has, 4 shots on target for the 3 that Miami has, 2 shots as blocked for the 1 that Miami has, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 43% possession that Miami has in this game. And although I don't know if this is going to be how Miami's going to look every single game because I think this was probably one of the best, if not the best game that I've seen Miami has played ever since Messi and his friends come to this team. If this is kind of the performance that they can put against any team or even in the playoffs, nobody can stop them. Like nobody can stop this Miami team if they play at this kind of level because this is just it was just quite incredible to see the performance that they put against an Orlando City team that, mind you, this is a good Orlando City defense. I mean, this is not like an Orlando City defense that have leaked goals left and right. So again, if they can be able to completely destroy an Orlando City defense in quick succession like that, I don't think anybody could stop them if Inter Miami play at this level. But as for Orlando City, I mean, the good news is it's only one game. I know there's going to be Orlando City fans that will easily overreact this game because it is a rivalry game. It's an embarrassing loss in a rivalry game, and it's one that unfortunately, they definitely don't want to hear it down the line. Even though I'm pretty sure the next time both of these teams will met, this will be a game that will be mentioned in this up and coming rivalry. But the good news is it's only one game. The bad news is they play Tigres next, and I guarantee you that Tigres probably watched this game and they are probably licking their chops, and especially that guy, that Frenchman called Andre Pierre Gignac. Yeah, he's probably licking his chops in this game too, because you know that if Orlando City defense, while I know no they face against a Miami team that was just at their best, if they decided to do the same thing against Tigres, oh boy, that game that they have against Tigres, which is kind of what they feel like it's a revenge game. Yeah, it might not be a revenge game whatsoever, and that I guess maybe in some way you could also argue that this game could also help Orlando City in a way where yes, you got a huge wake up call because of how bad they perform in this one, but does that mean that they'll respond big? I mean, I think on that game against Tigres on Wednesday where they're playing at home and they have to win that one to avoid going down to Mexico to get a result. We're gonna see if they of course can respond, because if they don't respond, yeah, I have a feeling Orlando City fans are not going to be happy, especially with Oscar Pereira, because one thing about Orlando this season is that they have a lot of expectation, and the fact that they haven't really lived up that expectation and getting off to a slow start, just like what we saw last season. I said Oscar Pereira's job is pretty safe because he signed a new contract. Don't be surprised that things can take a turn for it is worse because of what we've seen in this league. Well, that being said, moving on in the next match. So, as I mentioned, this is the snow game between RSL versus LAFC. Now, I understand that yes, LAFC players and coaches are not going to be happy about this game, mainly because of the playing condition. I mean, their head coach Steve Cherundolo basically sound off in the post game press conference about the playing condition, and even Ryan Hollins have even said that he's going to talk to the MLSPA about this and this shouldn't, of course, happen ever again. Unfortunately for Ryan Hollinshead and Steve Cherundolo, yeah, nothing is probably gonna be done with this game because again, both teams had to endure in this same condition. And while yes, the playing condition at time was kind of unplayable, again, both team has to deal with it. RSL dealt with it better than what LAFC did in this one. And let's also not forget, I'm pretty sure everybody love a little snow classico. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. I mean, I know it happened last year in the season opener for Minnesota United, but even then, that game it didn't really snow at all besides like the first couple of minutes. This game was something out of out of what we saw in the 2013 World Cup qualifying between the US and Costa Rica of how bad it was snowing and how poor the playing condition was. That just makes you want to keep an eye on because it's something we don't usually see happen often. Now, early on in the first half, again, this game actually was delayed 2 hours due to snowy conditions. So this game didn't actually even start on time, and because of it, this game actually started about 30 minutes but for this game. And later on, when the game did eventually kicked off, it didn't take long for them to go back under a delay. After just 3.5 minutes, there was lightning in the area, so they had to go through a 30-minute protocol. Eventually, the game restarted at 3:05, and that pretty much means that this game would have finished before this one. And this is why I've said earlier that I didn't really take too much notes near the end of this one because I was really watching this game because of how how how, uh, how much I enjoy the Snow Classico, even though this game was kind of a little bit out of hand in the second half as well. But yeah, the game did restarted with the entire pitch basically covered with snow, and the orange ball is out. And keep in mind, the snow was still falling and was falling harder as the game goes along. But in the 6th minute, Chicho Arango would hit one right to Lariz before for RSL clearly came out the better side in this delay, and to no one's surprise that they would score the first goal in the 18 minutes as Gomez would score to make it 1-0 in favor of RSL. I guarantee you, Carlos Gomez, he wished that it snows every day in Utah because he had a monster game in this one, probably his best game for RSL ever since he came to this team. But also not a great moment for Campos, who basically slipped on the snow and let Gomez in. Again, this is pretty much a nightmare situation if you're a defender because with the snow, you have to be really on your toes, and that there's gonna playing on a slippery surface is not easy whatsoever, and you're never prepared for this situation. And we saw in this situation, I guarantee Campos have never played in the snow before, and yeah, that there you go. But just 2 minutes later, it looks like Gomez scored again. This time, unfortunately, the goal was disallowed for offside, and that LAFC defense was clearly having problem dealing with the snow. It looked like they were definitely on ice, or they have been left on skate there because of it. And I also said that it was getting hard to see the players on the pitch because the snow was just so strong that it was kind of hard to see the player. It also doesn't help the fact that LAFC decided to wear their smokescreen jersey for this coming game because those smokescreen jersey, it's kind of hard to see at times too, and this just makes it even harder with the snow that is coming down. I guarantee that maybe those LAFC players were hoping that they wear that jersey and think that that might give them an advantage in blending into the element, and yeah, it didn't quite work out that way. But in the 30th minute, McMath would deny Bogusz from a corner from close range. I'll tell you what, Zach McMath and Hugo Lloris, both of these keeper actually had a really good game in this one. And considering, I talk about defenders, this was a nightmare situation for them playing in the snow and dealing with the icy condition. This is equally as hard for goalkeeper too, especially with the way that the snow can sometimes impair their vision a little bit. And we kind of saw it in the 41st minute when Gomez was able to score from Luna to make it 2-0 in favor of RSL. I mean, you can clearly see that Luis was completely flat footed there. You couldn't really see it very well, and Gomez basically just lashed it into the back of the net. And then just a couple of minutes later, Chicho Arango would score against his former team as he scored from Gomez to make it 3-0 in this one, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, at least the ground crew kind of cleared part of the pitch, at least the halfway line and also the penalty spot. The lines were cleared off, but it quickly disappeared because it started to snow hard again in the second half. Longwood then had a shot that was tipped off the post by McMath in the 47th minute before McMath had to deny Oliveira from close range. Again, Zach McMath was definitely playing well in this one. And he also got help from the post too because the post in the 54th minute would deny Bawanga from close range. LAFC, of course, pushed hard for one back. And I got to say, I will. Despite the fact that LAFC eventually would lose this one, I don't think the scoreline really indicated the outcome or how this game, of course, played out because I thought LAFC had their chances as well. But yeah, they were pushing hard to try and to get one back, and it feels like it's now RSL their defense was having problem in terms of dealing with the snow and slipping on the snow. Lloris would then deny Aria, or not Aria, Arango in the front post. What's Ariango? I accidentally mixed up with both Ariaga and Arango at the same part. But anyway, in the 71st minute, McMath would deny Oliveira from close range. And again, both goalkeepers, I thought they did a really good job in terms of keeping the ball out of the net despite the challenging condition. Bawanga would then hit one right to McMath, and then Tillman would miss high and wide from long range. And then this is where the game kind of started to become a little bit wacky because you knew that this game was going to be wacky with the way that the snow was coming down harder as the game goes along. Because the wacky moment all started in the 81st minute when Ojeda, of course, gets a red card. Now, originally, he got a straight red card on the challenge on Timothy Tillman. They go to VAR to see whether or not it maybe that should be downgraded to a yellow card, which they did. But the problem was Ojeda was already on the yellow card. So basically, VAR basically said that of course is not a straight red, but unfortunately because he's already on a yellow card and it's downgraded to a yellow, he still gets sent off. I mean that is just peak MLS moment, and surprisingly, this is not the first time I've seen this happen. I actually seen this happen a couple of years back. I don't recall how it happened, but in one of the games, I remember we saw something very similar to that, and it kind of doesn't make sense that they had to go to VR to see this. It kind of feels like it's a bit of a waste of time. And again, the one thing about red cards and how it works in MLS, it doesn't matter if you get a straight red or a second yellow, you're still gonna get get a 1 game suspension. Whereas I know in other leagues, and especially in Europe, some of the leagues they have a little bit different. Where if you get a second yellow, I think you only get like 1 game, and if you get a straight red, you get like 3 games or so forth. But yeah, because of that long VAR delay, that means yeah, we're pretty much guaranteed stoppage time. But before that, Aaron Long would then curl one just wide from long range, and I had to check if that's Aaron Long there because again, this game is weird when Aaron Long is basically the one that is putting some lovely curler that just missed wide there. I mean, for a defender that's not known to shoot from long range, I mean, this game just kind of got really weird. And again, as I mentioned, because of the VAR, look, that took a while. 8 minutes of stoppage time was made, even though I'm pretty sure no one wanted this game to continue for another 8 minutes. And in fact, really in stoppage time, you can clearly see both teams kind of had a mutual agreement that yeah, let's just kind of dribble the ball kind of side to side because it is pretty clear that the snow was just so dense that you can barely see the ball was moving at all. And I think if it wasn't the fact that we got to the point where we're into stoppage time, I think the league and maybe the referee probably had made a decision that yeah, maybe we need to stop this game because of the fact that the playing condition was pretty much unplayable. So yeah, in the end, RSL was able to walk away with the 3-0 victory, and the shots in this one, 16 shots for the 11 that RSL had. Both teams had 6 shots on goal, 5 shots off target for the 1 that RSL had, 3 shots that was blocked for the 4 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that LAFC has in this game. And like I said, I know LAFC coaches and players are not going to be happy with this result, but keep in mind, it's just 1 game. And also, in these challenging conditions, it's almost kind of like a coin flip. And, give credit to RSL. They were on the right side of the coin flip because they're more prepared, while LAFC just wasn't prepared. And yeah, they kind of got found out after this game as well. But that being said, moving on into the next game is Vancouver and Charlotte. So this was a game where for the Whitecaps is their first competitive game, and they kind of look like playing their first competitive game because they got off to a bit of a slow start in this one. Early on, O'Ronan would hit one right to Takaoka in the 10th minute, and really not much going to happen in the first 18 minutes. There was only 1 shots apiece for both of these teams. Tavares would then hits one right to Takaoka before Veselinovic would hit one right to Kalina in the 21st. Blackman then flashed one just wide from close range as Vancouver started to dust off that preseason rust. Yes, I know they have played a competitive game in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Tigres, but that was like 2.5 weeks ago. This really felt like it's almost like a fresh new start for Benny Sartini's team. But they started to get into the game and shake off that rust. But in the 31st minute, Charlotte would take the lead. It's Tavares. He scored from the Fury to give Charlotte a 1-0 lead, and that is obviously his first career MLS goal, Tavares. And it's kind of interesting because Tavares he scored a goal in the last game that later it was changed to given to Melenda because the ball never crossed the line. So officially, he gets his first career goal in this one, and that gives Charlotte a 1-0 lead. In the 41st minute, Takaoka would then rob Capetti as he was clean on goal there. Yeah, Capetti would want to have that one back because when you're 1-1, and especially when you're being paid to be that lethal goal scorer, that is got to be one that he has to bury. But give credit to Takaoka making a big save there. Ball then puts one right to Kalina in the second minute of stoppage time, but then the 5th minute of stoppage time, Vancouver equalized. It's Raposo scoring from Vite to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and it was actually mishit by Ryan Raposo, which that actually ends up to maybe be the reason why it ended up in the back of the net because Kalina, I think he was thinking that he was going to be saving this one with Raposo kind of hitting him for the right side of the post, but because Raposo kind of mishits it, Helena already committed and just got completely flat-footed because of that. But yeah, that ties the game at 1 apiece heading into the second half. And in the second half, Tavares would look for his second of the game, but unfortunately he missed just wide there in the 52nd minute. There was a shout for, or actually no, there was not a shout for a penalty. But in the 54 minutes, actually Schultz that had a shot that was bobbled by Kalina, but was gathered. You can kind of tell I'm a little tired because I've just done a full shift of work after I only got like 5 hours sleep last night. But yeah, again, Selena kind of bobbled that one, but he's very fortunate that no one was there and he gathered. Brown then had a weak shot that looks like it was an easy save for Kalina, but Kalina kind of got caught flat-footed here as well, and he only had just was able to extend himself full stretch to save that one. And I mean, row, it feels like it's been an adventurous day for Christian Kalina. Again, some of these saves that you would expect him to make and any goalkeeper made, he's basically looking like it's very hard to do so. In fact, that kind of continued because Kalina would deny Pico, but he spilled that one, and he is very fortunate that his teammate was able to clear this one off the line. And this is where, if you're a Charlotte fan, you're basically holding your breath and hope that Polina doesn't make more mistake, because you just kind of had a feeling that eventually he's going to make one crucial mistake that's going to cost Charlotte in this one. Though in the 75th minute, Ajiman would hit it right to Takuaka, as that was actually the first shot for Charlotte in the second half. Charlotte really didn't carry that momentum that they had in the first into the second. But White then hits high from close in the 80th minute as Vancouver was pressing late to win it. In fact, White had a couple of opportunities late. He puts it wide from a tight angle in the 81st minute before he puts one wide from close again in the 83rd minute. But yeah, in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in this one. Shots in this one, 10 shots for the 7 that Charlotte has, 5 shots on goal for the 6 that Vancouver has, 4 shots off target for the 1 that Charlotte has, 6 shots that was, or actually no, not 6 shots, no shots that was blocked out. I thought for a second that was actually 6 there, but there was actually no shot that was blocked for both of these teams, which is kind of a rarity. We usually don't see a game where there was no shot that was blocked by both teams. But possession wise, 50% for both of these teams, and overall, I think the draw kind of sums up this game, where both teams had their moments in this one, but just weren't able to show that clinical finishing, and they'll definitely walk away with a point coming out of this game. With that being said, I am now going to change boards and look at the last 4 games as part of part number 1 of this review of match week number 2, looking at the first 8 games of the second match week for the 2024 MLS regular season. And now we get to the busy 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific games, or at least part of it, because we'll talk about one more in part number 2 of match week number 2 review. And also, this is where the road team started to dominate, because 3 of these 4 road team was able to get a win, and coincidentally, all 3 of them were able to win by a score line of 2-1. And that starts with the first one, which is Chicago and FC Cincinnati. So I mentioned, the Fire, they might catch a break here because Cincinnati maybe decided to punt this game, and Pat Nolan team decided to go with a weaker squad. Well, unfortunately, it didn't happen. It looks like Cincinnati decided to put their starters in this game, despite the fact that they got a big game against Rayados in the CONCACAF Champions Cup midweek. But despite that, yeah, for the Chicago Fire, this looks like an same old Chicago Fire kind of game, where, after the last couple of games that they have, or actually not the last couple of games, but really the last game in general, it looks like it gives hope that this Fire team can do something. And yeah, they look completely flat in this game. Early on, the first shot of the game did see Herbert had a shot that was blocked, but it was recycled back to Kellen Acosta, who puts it high from long range in this one. But not much really happened in the first 15 minutes. The shots were 2-0 in favor of Chicago. In fact, those 2 shots that I mentioned in the 5th minute was the only shots in the first 15 minutes. Though in the 16th minute, Brady would rob Bupenza from a point blank header. I mean, Bupenza, he definitely cannot believe that he did not put that one away, but great save there from Chris Brady to keep this one at 0-0. And then Robinson would head it wide from the corner in the 20th minute before Bupenza puts it high from long range, as Cincinnati was started getting some chances and was pressing for the opener. Acosta then missed wide from long range, and this is Lucho Acosta. Again, there was 2 Acosta in this game. I probably should have gone with their first letter initial to her first name initial too. But in the 33rd minute, Brady would deny Buka from close range, and you just kind of had a sense that with all the pressure Cincinnati put, they were going to put one in, and they did. In the 39th minute, Bupenza would score to make it 1-0 in favor of Cincinnati, and that came off of a terrible turnover from the Fire. I mean, they basically just gave this right to Bupenza, and Bupenza says, "Thank you very much." He tucks that one in to give Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. Lead does not last long, though, because in the 41st minute, a penalty was given to the Fire, as VAR deemed that Wobodo brought down Gutierrez in the box, which allowed Shaqiri to have a chance to score on the penalty. and he buries it. So that ties it up at one apiece, despite the fact that the Fire was kind of second best at times in the second half. But in or the first half that is, but we head into the second half, and in the second half, Bupenza would hit one that took a deflection before Brady would deny Bear on the doorstep of the goal. And again, Cincinnati, even though they gave up that late equalizer, they definitely didn't look unfazed. And I also wrote set piece defending hasn't been great for the Fire in this game, and that actually turns out to be a big difference maker in this game as well, because after Jimenez would puts it wide from long range, and then Brady would deny Bear again, this time from close range. In the 68th minute, on the ensuing corner, Miles Robinson would score his first goal for Cincinnati from Lucho Acosta to make it 2-1 in favor of Cincinnati. And yeah, that was not great set piece defending whatsoever for the Chicago Fire. I mean, I know Robinson hasn't scored a lot of goals, but if you're gonna leave him with some space there in the box, he's gonna hit that one into the back of net. And that's exactly what happened. It was poor set piece defending from the Fire, which was a huge issue in the second half, and it kind of eventually caught up to them. Uh then Lucho Acosta looked for a third goal for Cincy, but he missed high there, and then Bupenza looked for his second, but he puts one right to Brady there. I don't know why I wrote Salatano there in the 77th minute. And yeah, Cincinnati was definitely pressing for a third goal, while Chicago, again, they were just getting pinned down. They just couldn't find any momentum whatsoever to make a late push. And in the end, it was a relatively easy win for Cincinnati, a 2-1 road win against the Chicago Fire, and the stats kind of proves it. 13 shots compared to just 5 that the Chicago Fire has. 1 shot on goal for the 5 that Cincinnati has. 6 shots off target for the 3 that the Fire has. 2 shots that was blocked for the 1 that the Fire has. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to the 49% possession that Cincinnati has. And I know the Fire has the unfortunate situation where they later found out that they were actually playing a stronger Cincinnati team than I originally thought that they were going to play in this one. Still, this looked like it was the same old Chicago Fire team that looked like they played well in the last game, and it gives hopes to the fans. But this is why a lot of Fire fans have been saying that you cannot have hope for this team, even if they play well, because this is what they do. They would just lay flat on their face in the next game, and let's just hope maybe they'll turn it around heading into the next game. But for Cincinnati, good road win for them, and let's see if they can carry that momentum heading into their midweek CONCACAF Champions Cup clash against Rayados. But moving on in the next one, so this is another game that ended 2-1 in favor of the visitor. Montreal. So as I mentioned in the preview, with the way that Montreal has this lengthy road schedule to start the season, you just kind of feel like they need to at least win one if they want to stay in contention. And guess what? They've already won one in this one, getting a 2-1 win against FC Dallas. Now early on, Musa would puts it wide from close range in the 3rd minute. So indeed, I was right. I thought Petter Musa had a chance to make his debut for Dallas, and he did in this one, and he actually would score later in this game too. Just a little spoiler alert. But in the 4th minute, Lassiter would head it wide from close range, and then in the 10th minute, oh, this is a rough injury that Mahalo Poku just suffered. He had to be uh, be uh, be substituted off in this one, and let's just hope that it's not a bad injury. But I think from what I remember, it looks like a non-contact injury, and anytime when it's a non-contact injury, especially involving the knees, you just hope it's not that A-word that Mahalo Poku suffered. That could means that that's the end of his season. But Drew Anthony Vincent basically replaced him, and his replacement made an instant impact because in the 20th minute, and also no pun intended, of course, because of Montreal, as he would score here from Kokoro to make it 1-0 in favor of Montreal. I mean, Kokoro had a really good game last one, and he kind of carried into this one as well. And while I thought that was a great goal there for Drew Anthony Vincent, who I think this is his first career MLS goal. I mean, I think I remember that he scored for Montreal before. I'm not quite sure, but while this of course was a great goal for him, making an instant impact coming off the bench. Yeah, that's one that I think Paul's would want to have back. I mean, he got something on it. This was near post. It was very similar to what I said about the Dane Sinclair goal that he gave up. When you're a goalkeeper and you gave up a goal in the near post, it's definitely one that you would not want to see back, and especially with how good Paul's has been for Dallas this season and really last season as well. That's one that you want halfback. But nevertheless, Montreal was up 1-0. No pass didn't make up for it in the 24th minute as he denied Lassiter on the free kick. And just like the last game, Montreal has come to play. I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to Laurent Courtois and what he has done so far. We know that he's basically trying to implement a similar style that Wilfred Nancy has run for this Montreal team a couple of years ago. And so far, we're definitely seeing the effect. I mean, I wouldn't say that they're back to being like that Wilfred Nancy team we saw a couple of years ago, but slowly you're starting to see the resort, and you start to see this team has definitely respond better than what we saw at any moments under her and Lasada. Versan then tried to get his second goal, but he hits one right to Pass before Pass would deny Waterman from close range, and then Farrington would hit one right to see Was, as that was the first shot for Dallas since the third minute. I mean, it was all Montreal up to this point. And then in the first minute of stoppage time, Peter Musa would score his first goal from Kamungo to tie the game up at one apiece, and he had to kind of wait for a while because originally this goal was chopped off for offside. They go to VAR. It turns out no offside was found, so the decision was overruled. And then Sealy would hit one right to Siwas in the 7 minute of stoppage time, and Montreal, who looked dominant in the first 35 minutes, all of a sudden they looked like they were all on the ropes, and that's how much things can change in an instant, where you can look very dominant in a game, even if you're playing on the road. But if you gave up a goal kind of against the run of play, then the momentum can really change against you. But the good news for Montreal is the fact that we did had it was kind of near the end of the halftime, and we do head to halftime tied up at one apiece. In the second half, Lassiter would puts one right to Pass before Siwas denying Jumta from outside the box. Sealy would then hits one right to Siwas, as I thought both teams looked very lively early in the second half. They both want to take the lead into the early part of the second half, and that's exactly what happened as Montreal would retake the lead. And guess who? It's Joseph Martinez. He scored from Juan to make it 2-1 in favor of Montreal, and that looked like a very Joseph Martinez kind of goal. Again, I know Joseph Martinez is not the same player as he was with Atlanta, but ever so you started to see kind of the old flashes of Joseph Martinez making that run into the box, always find himself in a good spot to Topo get in, and that's exactly what he did in this one to make it 2-1 in favor of Montreal. In fact, he had another chance to make it 3-1, or he had a chance to make it 3-1 and had another chance to score another goal, but he just could not quite stab this one into the back post. I mean, it was a beautiful ball delivered into the back post, but unfortunately Martinez just missed that. Musa then hits one right to Siwas in the 66th minute, but then Siwas absolutely robbed Tafari on a point blank header. I mean, that's one that Tafari cannot believe he did not score it, but there was no doubt that Dallas was pushing hard to trying to get the equalizer. Siwas was kind of standing on his head a little bit near the end of the game, trying to single-handedly secure all 3 points for Montreal, and that's exactly what he did. As in the end, Montreal walk away with a 2-1 win. It's their first win of the season, first win under their new head coach, Laurent Courtois. Shots in this one, 11 shots for the 10 that Montreal has, 6 shots on goal for the 7 that Dallas had, 2 shots off target for both of these teams, 1 shot that was blocked for both of these teams, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Montreal has in this game. And while Montreal is very happy to get the wins up in the tally for their new head coach, for Dallas, this is very frustrating. And again, this feels like the problem that they had for the past couple of years. And this is where in the beginning of the season I talk about how, as much as it seems like they are set to have a good run, what's going to hold them back is definitely the tactics that Nico Estevez sometimes use, and you've seen in this game, and really for the past season. There's a reason why Dallas fans have been really hating on Nico Estevez, especially the tactics, because some of his tactics seems very stale to a point where it doesn't even matter if they have some big name player. They just he's not able to get the best out of them. Well, that being said, moving on in the next match. So again, this was kind of a rough week in terms of the two Texas teams. Though you could argue maybe you can include Austin too. Though as I'll talk about tomorrow, Austin kind of somehow in some way got a miraculous draw against the Seattle Sounders. But in terms of the two main Texas rival, or at least the two El Capitan rival, because I don't want to leave Austin out there as a third wheeler. It was a rough week for them because for the Houston Dynamo, they also lost 2-1 in this game, and it looked like, at least early on, it wasn't that going to be the case. It didn't look like the Dynamo was going to lose this game and maybe even run away with this one. As early on they were on the front foot, alley would it's one right to Cornell, as that was the first shot of the game. And then in the 7th minute, on the second shot of the game, alley with Barry's it. He scored from Karaskia to make it in favor of 1-0 in favor of the Dynamo. I mean, that was just a beautiful ball from Coco Karaskia. There's no reason why he's a name that we're gonna keep an eye on that could be sold off for a big amount of money in the summer. But yeah, that made it 1-0 in favor of the Dynamo. Again, early on, it looked like this could be an easy victory for the Dynamo, but this is where the Red Bulls started to show up. Frostberg would look for a response, but his shot was deflected high, and then the post would deny Emo Frostberg there on the free kick. And I mean, well, here we go again for the Red Bulls and the post, because we saw in the last game, they in terms of so far their biggest arch enemy, it's not their opponent, it's basically the post. They hit it 3 times last game, and it looks like here we go again. It seems like they're going to hit the post even more and maybe even lead the league early on in terms of the most posts that's being hit this season. But in the 23rd minute, Schmidt would hits one right to Cornell before Seago would fires it wide from long range, as the Dynamo looked like they got the momentum back and was going for the second. But then Nealis would had a header that was denied by Clark, and then Van Zier had a chance in the 40th minute, but he hits it wide from close range, and all of a sudden the Red Bulls had the momentum. I mean, there was definitely some momentum shift in this game at time, and in the 43rd minute. Red Bulls capitalized on the momentum that they had, as Ilias Manuel would score from Dante Van Zier to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Morgan would hit one right to Clark in the 52nd minute, as I thought it was a promising start for the Red Bulls, at least in the early bit, and they kind of picked up where they left off near the end of the first half. And as a result, they were rewarded with a goal in the 59th minute. And Lewis Morgan, I mean, this has to feel good for Lewis Morgan, and this also has to be big for him, and also for Red Bulls fans to see him back on the scoreline, because there's been a lot of question with him suffering back-to-back brutal long-term injury. Is he going to be the same player that we saw when he came to the Red Bulls in his first season? And so far, of him getting on the score sheet, that definitely helps. And you can see with the way that he scored that goal, was a beautiful long range effort goal. Definitely didn't look like Lewis Morgan skipped a beat. And if he can continue to have these kind of performance, he would definitely be in an early candidate in terms of winning comeback player of the year. But that being said, at the same time, that probably shouldn't have happened if it wasn't for a bad turnover from the Dynamo. Again, can't turn the ball over in your own half and expect not to get punished, especially against this Red Bulls team. But it looked like the Red Bulls immediately gave the lead away, as Kowicik had a chance to tie it immediately, but he was denied by the post in the 61st minute. And then Savichenko would heads it wide from close range as the Dynamo pressed back for the equalizer. Cornell would then deny Dorsey on the header, and then Karaskia would pulls it wide from close range. Again, the Dynamo was throwing the kitchen sink. They were looking, trying to get the equalizer. The Red Bulls were definitely hanging on a little bit near the end of the game. Aliud had a chance in the second minute of stoppage time, but he hits it wide from close, and despite the fact that the Dynamo worked hard to get the equalizer, they weren't able to do so, as the Red Bulls hang on to win 2-1 in this one. And the shots in this one, 13 shots for the 12 that the Red Bulls had, 5 shots on goal for both of these teams, 2 shots off target for the 7 that the Dynamo had, 3 shots that was blocked for the none that Houston had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to the 44% possession that the Red Bulls had. And just like what I said about Montreal getting their first win under their new head coach, Laurent Courtois, the Red Bulls, they get their first win under their new head coach, Sandro Schwartz, and so far, things are definitely looking promising for this Red Bull side, especially on the attack. I feel like they definitely look much better in these last 2 games compared to what we saw for majority of last season, and it's no surprise. I mean, when you have the likes of Morgan and Frostberg really offering a lot of good attacking weapons, and even Dante Van Zier started to turn things around, even though he hasn't scored a goal so far this season. Things are looking up for this Red Bulls team, and again in this game, the post didn't kind of get in the way besides that one time, and that's kind of the reason why they got the win. But for the Houston Dynamo, they'll definitely feel a little bit disappointed about the result. I mean, I don't think it was a bad performance by the Dynamo standpoint, and they had their moments to win this game, but it's just one of those games that unfortunately they just weren't able to show their clinical finishing, and ends up on the losing end. speaking of a team that weren't able to fill their clinical finishing, Sporting KC. So yeah, this is a game that they'll feel like they left points uh slip out of their hands late in this one because they pretty much had this game control at least for pretty much the majority of the first half. And unsurprisingly, Jim Curran decided to heavily rotate the squad because you can't put a squad that literally played 120 minutes against Saprissa just a couple of days ago and expect to trot out there without show maybe some fatigue that could be a factor. So yeah, this was a game you can clearly see the Union was trying to punt this game away. And this also was a game where I feel like it might be a breakout game for Oliver Simitli, the Union goalkeeper in relief for Andre Blake because he had a big game in this one. First, he denied Russell from close range in the 8th minute, and unsurprisingly, Sporting was on the front foot. They were looking for the early goal, and they felt they got it in the 11th minute as Polito puts it into the back of the net. Problem was the goal was disallowed for offside, and I gotta say it was very, very close. I mean, so close that was it Polito the one that was maybe a half step off too. But nevertheless, the goal was chopped off for offside, and that in the 12th minute, Martinez did has the first shot for the Union, and it was a good one too. I mean, the shot was deflected, and it just goes wide there. I mean, we know Jose Martinez can score from long range, and he almost got help because of the deflection. But in the 19th minute, Sporting KC eventually get the opener. It's Remy Voltaire. He scored from minutes to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC. Speaking of deflection, that shot took a deflection there. So while on one end, the Union were a little bit unlucky to not have a deflection go their way. On the other, Sporting KC get the lucky deflection and they take a 1-0 lead. They try to make it 2-0 in the 34th minute when Tommy hits one right to Simile, and it's just been all Sporting KC in this one. But the question is, can they get the second goal and really can they create more chances? Because despite them being very dominant in this game and having most of the possession, they haven't really created too much chance to really um, eventually push for another goal and really pile on the pressure as the game goes along. In the first minute of stoppage time in the first half, Samela would deny Shari, but he did give up a rebound, and there was Johnny Russell ready to pounce on it, and yeah, that's one that Johnny Russell would want to have back because he puts that one wide, and we head to halftime with Sporting KC leading 1-0, and this is where I think for Jim Curran, probably feel like maybe they might still have a chance to get something out of this game, and that he decided to bring in the cavalry, bring some of his starters with both Kai Wagner, Daniel Gazdag, and Ali Bedoya summoned into this game. And it actually made an instant impact too, at least in terms of them playing much better. As Sullivan would miss wide from long range in the 47th minute, Bedoya then hits one right to Millie in the 54th, and then Gazdag would miss wide on the volley in the 55th minute. Again, no surprise the fact that the Union started to play much better now that they started to put in some of their attacking force, and this is where if you're Sporting KC again, the fact that they only scored one goal in the first half, despite being so dominant, is that going to come back to haunt them? In the 72nd minute, Hario had a shot that or yeah had a had a shot that missed wide in the 72nd minute before Showery on the other end hits one right to Simile, and then he would deny Russell in the near post, and again Simile just having a big game in this one, single-handedly keeping the Union in this game. In the 90th minute, Anderson would hit it just wide from close range, and then in the 5th minute of stoppage time, again, how many times we have seen before when you don't put your opposition away, it's going to come back to haunt you, and come back to haunt Sporting KC. As in the 5th minute of stoppage time in the second half, the Union would equalize. It's Bedoya that ties the game up at one apiece, and yeah, we talk about keeping at least in this first part of the review, and some of these goalkeeper having a bit of a rough week and giving up soft goals. Yeah, this is one that Tim Mealy would want to have back. I mean, he came off his lines there, and when you're basically trying to punch the ball away, you have to have a strong punch. He didn't have a strong punch. In fact, he punched that ball right into the path of Bedoya, and Bedoya says, "Thank you very much." He puts it into the empty net, and that ties the game up at one apiece. So on the other end, Rodriguez had a chance to give the lead and give all 3 points to Sporting KC, but he puts one right to Similia, and in the end, it was a 1-1 draw in this one, as the shots in this one, 12 shots for the 7 that the Union has, 2 shots on goal for the 7 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots off target for the 1 that Sporting KC had, 4 shots as blocked for the 1 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to the 42% possession the Union has in this game. And, for the Union, I'll pretty much say the same thing I said about Minnesota. They probably don't deserve to get a point out of this game. They kind of probably snatch a point late in this one, but for Sporting KC, it has to be very frustrating. Again, this is what happened when you don't put your opposition away. You're going to leave yourself vulnerable in terms of giving up a late goal, and especially if you could have one mistake on the defensive end, or in this case, for Tim Millian making a rare mistake. That's all it needs for your opposition to tie the game and snatch a point away, and that's exactly what the Union has in this one, and that Sporting KC will be feeling very frustrated that they let this one out of the way and had a big opportunity to get their first win after the second game. I mean, I'm pretty sure Sporting KC fans are hoping this is not the beginning of them having to have to wait 10 games like they did last year, or actually not 10 games, 11 games last year before them getting their first win, and we'll see whether that maybe will be the case. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my review of these 8 games. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 8 games, and as always, I'll do the remaining 6-game review of match week number 2 as part 2 of the review for match week number 2 tomorrow. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.